Good evening. Good evening. Marina, hello. Welcome to another Monday Night Live at Cafe Gratitude. I love this. It's a full house, of course, because we've got the lovely and talented Elaina Love. I have to say Elaina Love, like that. Elaina Love. So, Elaina Love, I didn't know how good we had it last year when she was still local. I was able to snag her for 3 different Monday Night Live events, and now she lives in Patagonia, Arizona, which is amazing. But luckily we were able to coincide one of her visits to the North Bay with doing a Monday Night Live. So she's going to be talking about accessing your body's highest potential through juice feasting and a low glycemic lifestyle, which is a really important topic to me, the low glycemic part. So let me give you a little background. I know you all know who she is or you wouldn't be here, but let me just tell you her bio. Elaina Love is a professional raw food chef and instructor, lifestyle counselor, and owner-director of the raw food store Pure Joy Planet. She authored the Raw Vegan Living Food recipe books, Elaina's Pure Joy Kitchen 1 and 2, to share her favorite recipe creations, which have also been published internationally. She's also the creator of the amazing nut milk bag. She recently had some interesting insights while juice feasting, and it has changed the way she's approaching diet and food preparation. Here's Elaina to tell you all about it.
Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Shea. Always great to be back here. This is the first time I've ever not lived in California in my entire life. I recently moved to Patagonia, Arizona, which some of you may know is the home of Gabriel Cousins, who's been my longtime raw food guru because of his low glycemic approach to raw foods, and finding that I've tried so many different ways of eating raw foods and find that I always end up going back to his program and his teaching. So now I find myself living in the same town as him, which is really fun, and it's a really beautiful place to be and live. If any of you have ever been wondering about visiting there, it's a great place to come. So I'm happy to be back in California. I actually came up for the weekend to do the chef showcase that was up at Living Light up in Fort Bragg, about a couple hours north of here, and that was an amazing weekend. We had 12 different chefs who were presenting their favorite or their niche little cuisine that they were teaching, so I learned a lot. And it's amazing to see how many different types of raw foods are out there, even in the gourmet world, and just the different things that people can come up with. Chad Sarna was there, and we haven't seen him in years, and he's been out opening restaurants in Turkey and England and all over the world, all raw food gourmet. And this is super gourmet stuff where you don't even say it's raw, it's just raw. And so it was just fun seeing all the different types of cuisine and what people were doing and learning from the chefs. And so I had a lot of fun. And I just love being in this world of raw foods and people that eat raw foods, because I feel like this has become my family. It really is, because any of you who have been eating raw foods for any length of time know there's a certain kind of understanding that we all have with, you know, whether something's organic or even the quality of the oil that we're putting in something, or the age of the hot sauce we're using, how long it's been around, what the ingredients are in it. And when we don't have to really explain why we're doing those things or explain to someone why we don't want to have what they're serving us, it just feels like, you know, home. I think it's like when you go to another country and you experience a little culture shock because no one really understands what you're trying to explain. I find that the same way with the raw food lifestyle, and it doesn't matter if you're eating 30% raw or 100% raw or anywhere in between. It seems like we all have that similar understanding, that knowing that the quality of the food that we put into our diet, into our bodies, is the most important thing. And I really do, at Living Light a lot, we talk about percentages, about not talking about percentages with each other, because what happens when people are new and eager about raw food, the raw food diet, and I was one of those people, I got into it 13 years ago, and we get really eager about that we want to convert everyone to raw foods, and that we want to know what percentage raw everybody's eating, and not necessarily because we want to judge them, but because we want to know, where am I on that scale, and oh, she looks really good. What percentage of raw does she eat, and what does she eat when she's not eating raw? And so we really all want to know all about each other for that reason. But what ends up happening is some people feel judged, so they end up hiding what they're eating that's not raw, and it kind of becomes this illusion. And then when you see someone eating something that's maybe not raw or not on the plan, there's judgment that comes up, or disillusionment, or, you know, all of those different things. So I really like just talking about being wherever you're at, And so for the first 2 years of my raw food journey, I was 100% raw, and I did the low-glycemic diet, which was amazing for me. The reason I got into raw foods was because I had discovered that I had systemic yeast in my body, which meant pretty much everything I was eating, which was, you know, even though I was vegetarian, I was eating a lot of wheat gluten, all the fake meats, a lot of dairy, a lot of eggs, and like ice cream was my favorite thing. It was soy ice cream or some kind of dairy-free ice cream. So when I discovered I had systemic yeast, I was told I couldn't have any of those foods, especially any grains or things with any form of sweetness or sugar in them. So it was a big shock to me, and so going down to the low-glycemic lifestyle really changed it for me, and I was really eager because I felt so good. And I know a lot of you who have just gone on a raw food diet feel amazing, and you notice the difference right away of just going from eating, you know, a high meat diet or a high grain diet to a high plant diet. And we like to call it high raw or high plant diet because it's really easy to explain to someone when they say, well, what do you eat? And you say, you know, a new phrase they're using in Whole Foods now is plant strong, which means people can understand that. You don't have to say I don't eat meat or I only eat these things, but if you say I eat a plant-strong diet, people can kind of understand that. And it makes it just a little, I think, easier for people to follow along with what we're doing. So when I went on this low-glycemic diet, I cut all fruit out of my diet for an entire year, and that included even a blueberry, which isn't very sweet. The reason I did this is because I was so determined to heal my body of this yeast that I knew was in it. And I really wanted, I remember reading a book called Cleanse and Purify Thyself, and that was the first raw food book I read, and that was the one that turned me on to eating raw and that got me excited about doing this lifestyle. And I remember reading that and in my mind thinking, I want to live a life that's vibrant, that's on purpose, that's not, you know, that's full of potential as opposed to living a life of mediocrity. And I looked at my life at what I was doing. That was back in 1997 at that time, and I thought, you know, this is pretty much mediocrity. I'm just kind of getting by. You know, I'm eating the least, I'm eating less than I should to not get overweight. So it was like really just like this maintenance thing of playing with that, but I wasn't really eating high vibration foods or high energy, high potential foods. And so once I learned that, it's kind of like I couldn't go back because now I had new information. I had to try it. So that's kind of how I've always been. And over the last 13 years, I've discovered and learned so much about what that means and what that is. And I've definitely gone back and forth between eating a super clean diet, which meant no fruit, no sugar of any kind, including date sugar or agave or honey or any of those things, to then again introducing them back in and seeing how my body reacted. So what I want to share with you all tonight is what I've discovered and what I've found that really works for me and for a lot of people to really get to that next level of highest potential, physically as well as mentally and emotionally. So the first thing I'm going to talk a little bit about tonight is my juice feast that I did. I did an 84-day juice feast recently. I began it, which month did I begin? I'm trying to remember now. I think I began in March. Yes, the first day of spring. And it was serendipitous because I didn't know that Saturday was the first day of spring. But Friday night I had gone to bed, and I had been traveling a lot and eating at a lot of the raw food restaurants. And one of the foods that doesn't work for my body, as well as I know a lot of other people out there, is cashews. And there tends to be a lot of use of cashews in a lot of the raw food cuisine. So I was eating down in Santa Monica, eating a lot of their yummy, amazing desserts and foods, and I found that I felt really bad, like worse than I was eating cooked food or, you know, other foods that, you know, just I found those nuts were really, really killing me. So I went to bed that Friday night, and it just kind of came in, a voice, or, you know, I felt like my angel saying, okay, you're going to wake up tomorrow, and even though you've said you would never do a 92-day juice feast, because I'd had other friends that had done it, you're going to do that. And it wasn't like, oh, let's just see how it goes. Sometimes I've had things where it's like, I'll try that. And I found that saying I'm going to try it and see how it goes never works, because as soon as you get hungry, you eat. So I just had this really strong knowing that I was going to get up and begin a 3-month fast. And I'd thought about it, I guess, long enough and had it in my consciousness long enough that it didn't seem shocking to me. And it just seemed like totally the most natural thing I could be doing. Now, the other reason that I decided to do it is because in January of this year, on January 5th, my son died of leukemia. And during that time, he had been sick for a year.